And welcome to YouTube. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is what is today? It is the 18th of January. This first month of 2022 is just flying by. It is the 18th day and the third full week, I guess, or second full week, or third full week, whatever it is. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being a part of this week's show, wherever you're watching me, wherever you're being a part of this show, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. Welcome. I ask that you right now go ahead and hit that share button so that we can expand our tribe and our community and have a fun conversation and show, not just today, but every week right here on Chalk Talk. So listen, since the last time we met, a lot has happened. If I recall correctly, this time last week when I visited with you, I shared some sound from then head coach David Culley of the Houston Texans, really talking about kind of looking back over his first season, projecting and looking ahead to what he thought was going to be his second season. He had just, when we interviewed him last Monday, he had just finished conducting a team meeting with the staff and players. And then on Thursday, he got the news that he was being relieved of his duties and that they were going to go in a different direction. So let me say a couple of things. There's been so much conversation about whether David Culley was a good coach or not, whether the Texans made the right move, whether or not they did the right thing by getting rid of him and terminating him. And so I don't think there's a lot of disagreement about whether or not David Culley was the coach of the future for this organization. I don't think there was a lot of debate about that. I really think it was about the way it was handled. I find it hard to believe that it took the team to Thursday to decide that he was not the guy they were moving forward with. General Manager Nick Caserio, when we met with him last Friday, I was one of the people that had a chance to be in the room when we interviewed him, and he talked about his, not much about his decision, but he did say basically what was said in the released statement on Thursday evening, which was that they had philosophical differences. And you're probably wondering, well, Kim, what were those philosophical differences? And I would tell you I don't know what they were, because Nick would not elaborate on it. He said out of really fairness, he wanted to keep some of those discussions or things private. And so then there really is just speculation about what that is. There's speculation about a lot of things as it relates to this team, and it's because there's not a lot of, I use the word transparency. They visit with the media. Nick met with us last week. He says a lot of things, but you don't always get a lot of information. I did listen to an interview he did on their partner radio station earlier today, where he talked a little bit about a couple of things we discussed last week. And when you're able to have a conversation, I haven't had a chance to do this, which I understand. I'm not a partner with the team, but when you're able to have a conversation with Nick Caserio one-on-one, you can probably, where you can then have follow-ups to your questions and have a real dialogue and exchange, you can probably get a better sense of some things. I will say, though, the interview that I heard him do today on the radio station was one of the most clear that I've heard since he's been here. And I think that's an area, well, listen, Nick Caserio is undoubtedly a very smart man. I think he's known as being a really good personnel guy. And so we will see how good of a general manager he is. I think it's fair to say we don't really know yet. It's fair for me to say that. I don't know yet, and not because I have anything bad to say about him. I just think we're a year in, and we'll know better moving forward. So here's some things that have happened. He came in, let me just talk about this for a minute out of fairness to Nick Caserio and this current administration. They inherited a mess. All right, it was a hot mess. The roster was jacked up. The cap space situation was horrible. They didn't have any early first and second round draft picks. And oh, by the way, your quarterback didn't want to be here. And that's even before all of the legal stuff came up. And welcome to Houston, all right? But he came in. The Texans made a huge commitment to him. I think it's important to kind of lay this out. And the first thing he had to do was hire a head coach. And so he did, and he hired David Culley, and many people had questions like, how do you hire this guy who was not on anyone else's radar? So not being on someone's radar for me isn't it doesn't mean it's a bad move, okay? But it is one that it is curious, okay? And we don't really know that he hadn't been on anyone's radar. I mean, a year later, we probably say, yeah, he probably was not, because not every team tells you everything, okay? He had not been a coordinator, and David Culley, who's what I'm talking about, was widely criticized for that, for him not having been a coordinator before becoming a head coach. And so he came in super gung-ho, super eager. He was Nick's first hire with the coaching staff that Nick basically assembled for him. And the Texans finished the season 4-13. Okay, and many people will look to, well, last year they finished 4-12, and they had Deshaun Watson, and they had J.J. Watt, and it was just a better team, and blah 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 blah. So they finished 4-13. They were in some of those games that you thought they could have won. He did that with a journeyman. David Culley, the organization, did that with a journeyman quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, who's had a history of injury challenges and issues. He was the guy that started to start the season. He got hurt in game 2. Davis Mills, the rookie quarterback, 3rd-round pick out of Stanford, who prior to coming to the Houston Texans had only started 11 games. I think it's important to mention that. It's not that I'm caping for Davis Mills. It's not that I'm saying he's a quarterback of the future. I'm just saying he had 11 starts. He was a 3rd-round pick. And he performed. I think the end of the season, I think he got better. I mean, I think it would be unfair to anyone to say he did not improve. So that's what they ended up with. But at the end of the day, they ended the season 4-13. And there were philosophical differences that led to Caserio saying, that's enough, we're going to move on. So for those of you who point to, well, he got paid, okay, good that he got paid, he being David Culley, but I'm sure it's about more than money to a lot of people. Listen, I'm not going to count anybody's money. I'm not going to fault him for coming here to a situation that may not have been ideal, right? It is what it is. It's a done deal. He did get a check. Good for him. Best of luck to him and his family. He's a good guy, respectful, and all you can do is wish him the best. That's a wrap on the David Culley side. So now what happens moving forward, right? Because that's really the key. Who will this Houston Texans team hire? What's Nick Caserio looking for? Clearly, things are different this year than they were last year. And this is him talking about, this is one of the things that Nick Caserio said last week at the press conference on Friday. He said, we're a better team now, and a lot of that has to do with David Culley. And here's Caserio.
You said you feel like this team's in a better position now than they were in training camp in September. What areas do you point to feel that way?
Yeah, I would say just the overall, the building, the attitude, the belief and some of the things that we're doing. I would say when you look at the way the players responded throughout the course of the year, the way they went out there, and I would say performed on a week-to-week basis. Again, take the execution out of it, but, they went out there and they performed. They played their ass off. They played with a lot of competitive spirit, and we put ourselves in a position, quite frankly, to maybe win some more games that we could have won, or at least had the opportunity to do so. So, again, I think just the attitude, the approach, the day-to-day when you're around the people in the building on a day-to-day basis, again, I think that goes back to the environment and the attitude that David was able to put in place. So I think we have some players that are committed to us. They're excited to be here for next year. We made some commitments to them, during the season. They wanted to be a part of that. They made a purposeful decision to be a part of what they're doing because they believe in some of the things that we're doing. That doesn't necessarily mean anything other than they want to be here and they believe in what we're doing, and they understand there's a lot of work, but we're about the work, and the NFL is about the work. And I'd say if the one thing, how you want to define the Houston Texans for 2022, it's going to be about the work. All right? Thanks.
So that's Nick Caserio. He's saying, listen, we're better now. And a lot of it is because of, or at least some of it is because of the work that David Culley did as a leader, as a coach, in terms of coming into this building, in terms of where we are now, right? He gave him credit for that. So what are you looking for moving forward? So if you know anything about Nick Caserio, if you've listened to him throughout the season, the few times that we've had access to him, he's always on their partner station because that's part of the relationship. over at the local station, Sports Radio 610. Nick says a lot of stuff. You got to weed through it. And I'm not saying that he's trying to be vague. That's his communication style. Like, you're talking from the person who does media coaching and training. He says a lot of things, and you don't always get to the heart of it, right? You got to really be intentional with your questions, and you got to be focused when you're listening to him. So he was asked about the decision to hire David Culley, and he said they made the right. He thought they made the right decision when they hired him. So a few things. Let's look back to this team a year ago, right? I mentioned before, I already told you what shape they were in. Basically a hot mess. Thank you, Bill O'Brien. And he said, listen, we're better now. So he never said that we didn't have a lot of options in terms of coaches. I believe they didn't have a lot of options in terms of coaches who would come into the situation that was set up, right? Nick Caserio is very much a hands-on coach. I'm not saying, a hands-on general manager. I'm not saying he's a micromanager. He's very involved. He's on the field. He's in the booth. You guys have heard me say all season that I just wasn't sure about the final decisions or making the in-game decisions because the general manager's in the booth on the headsets the whole time. I was unclear about how that worked out. Okay, so I asked the question about that, just about the next coach and what that person would be able to do and control in terms of game day decisions. Here is Nick Caserio, talking about being in the booth.
Thanks. Go ahead, Kim. Yep. Go ahead, one more. Yep.
Yeah, can you talk about how much autonomy the next coach would have? Like, I know that you were in the booth during the game, so there's a lot of conversation about in-game decisions. Will you be in the booth with the next coach? Will he have the ability to make the final decision about everything that happens on game day? What would you say to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think those discussions will be very organic, and I would say my philosophy has always been to serve and do the right thing by the people involved. So whatever that entails, if it entails doing something else, if it entails doing something less because that's the best thing for the organization, then I'm more than willing to do that. I think that's been my philosophy and attitude and track record over the course of my career. If you were to talk to anybody in New England, hopefully they would tell you the same thing. So I think for better or for worse, the reality is that probably my perspective is a little bit unique, maybe relative to some other people in my position. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better, it's right, or it's wrong, but I would say my training, I was trained to kind of look at things from a global perspective. So if I can be an asset and provide some information or input wherever that may be necessary, then, that's what I'm here to do. Again, my goal is to serve the Houston Texans, to serve the head coach, to serve the people in this building. And I can't undo, the fact that, I was in a press box for 18 of my 20 years in New England, in a various and sundry roles, and I'm proud of that. And, my job, I just want to help, I want to serve, and I want to provide a sounding board for the head coach, our staff, whomever else in the building, because that's my obligation and responsibility.
So that's Nick Caserio talking about being in the booth, right? So there's some who watched the clip or heard him say that last week and said he's just a micromanager. Today I heard him do an interview and he went a little further and he talked about that it's not uncommon that there are people in the booth who are on the headsets, right? We know that. And that it's the thing that's probably strange to most people is because of his title. It's because he's the general manager. And that's not typically what the role the general manager plays, but this is who he is and this is his approach in his way. And so it was a little more clear to me. He also said that he has been asked about that. The question was asked, hey, when you're talking to people, like, I guess coaches, have they asked you about that? And apparently the question has come up. People have asked him about that, you being in the booth and the in-game decisions. And so what it sounds like to me at this point is it's going to depend on who the coach is and what the coach is willing to, what they determine collectively, right, about Nick's role on the headset. Ultimately, it's Nick's decision because he's the boss. I think we also know that. So, we will see, and perhaps he had more of a role because David Culley didn't have any experience as a head coach or coordinator. Perhaps that's the case. But clearly, you can tell that, as he said, I was in the coach's booth for 18 of my 20 years in New England, And that's not going to change, right? Although he says it is to help, to be an asset, to be a support, but I still think that's something that might make some coaches. I've talked to, since that interview, I've talked to a few coaches, coordinators, and a couple of former head coaches. And that said, yeah, that'd be tough for them. So I think it just depends. I think we will see. But in terms of the autonomy of the upcoming coach, I don't think we know the answer to that. What's he looking for? He said that people make assumptions, right, about the Patriots in terms of the Patriots tree, them definitely wanting somebody from that tree. I don't know that those are just assumptions. I think that that's strongly where they look. And the ongoing joke about the Texans being the Patriots South, the reason that comes up is because there's so much trust in the organization, or looking at the organization, and you've got Nick Caserio, you've got Jack Easterby, and Nick, of course, the final say on all personnel decisions. Jack's role. I heard him talk about this today on the interview, that he's, logistics and all the other stuff, things that he can be a support to in terms of Nick. But I believe the hierarchy is, although Nick has final say on personnel decisions, Nick reports to Cal, and Jack also reports to Cal. So it's a little parallel in terms of how that goes. He said he also said today that he thought that sometimes Jack has gotten an unfair rap, or bad rap, unfairly about his role and what goes on here, and he considered him an asset. So those are some things that I thought were really interesting, right? Let me go. I haven't looked at your. Hey, good morning, Rita. Welcome. Dennis said he was waiting on the other coaches to be let go. I tell you, Dennis, that is something that makes you kind of say, you lean to their guys became available before he thought, perhaps. We know that they've interviewed Brian Flores, who came from the Patriots tree. Brian Flores was most recently the head coach of Miami, and they finished the season 8-1 at the end of the season. They finished the season kind of playing pretty well, and so let me talk about this for a minute. I wanted to start with talking about the people they've talked to with Brian Flores. He's the first one. But also because for those of you, and I understand it, man, if you saw Deshaun Watson play here, you want him to be a Houston Texan selfishly. Like, you want to see him play. I miss being able to cover Deshaun Watson as a quarterback of this football team, because he's so good, and his future was bright, and it still is bright. It's just not going to be bright here. You know what I mean? I just like watching what he did on the football field. I'm not talking about any of the other issues. I'm not, dealing with that. We'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. But so I get it, thinking, well, if they hire Brian Flores, then Deshaun Watson may come here because he really wanted to go be with Brian Flores. So I think Deshaun Watson, granted, I have not spoken with him. Okay. I don't have that access to him. I think he wanted to go to Miami because it's Miami, right? And maybe he liked Brian Flores. I was told that the owner really was the one that wanted him, but at any rate, couldn't get the deal done in terms of the settlements, and so that went out the window. My point in saying this is, if in fact the Houston Texans hire Brian Flores, I would be completely surprised if it mattered one bit to Deshaun Watson. He's done here, guys. I just don't see him coming here. I would love to be wrong, right? Because again, he's got such a future and he's so good. It would be great. I get it. But Brian Flores they're not going to hire him thinking that they could get Deshaun to come back. I don't think they want him. And he clearly doesn't want to be here. I think that ship has sailed. Today, Nick was asked about that on the interview that I listened to. He didn't just totally say, no, it's a wrap. He didn't commit because he's pretty non-committal about most things. But I'm telling you, I would be surprised. Now, I'm not a betting woman, so I'm not going to bet on what somebody else would do. I'm just telling you. I bet you a bag of truffle popcorn because I make it, right? That if Deshaun comes here, first person who calls me out on it, I'll send you some popcorn. I don't think it's going to happen, whether it's Flores or not. With that said, I've heard mixed things about Flores in terms of relationships, and so I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to saddle him with the comparisons of that I've heard. I don't know yet, and I think that would be unfair. But I just want to tell you all, so you can kind of continue to breathe and move on. Brian Flores isn't going to change anything in this discussion about Deshaun Watson. He's not coming here, all right? Hey, good morning, Deborah, Watson, Aaron, and to my sister Sylvia, and both my sisters. My sister Ellen, she is Angel is with her this morning. Hey, good morning, Charles Lamar Drayden, our legal expert who's been busy doing legal stuff. Super Green Dennis, I guess you're talking about Culley. And Bernard, everyone, please hit the share button. You're so kind, Bernard Francis. The best photographer I have ever seen in the business, and one of my dearest and oldest in terms of longevity, not age. I'm not calling you old, friends. Thank you, Bernard. He is a huge supporter of Chalk Talk, and he wants y'all to hit it, right? Dennis Glenn talking about Caserio. And yeah, so here's the thing, Bernard. That's a good question. Was my man on the headsets with Belichick? So here's the thing. I've heard, now, he said he was on the headsets in the booth. I think it may have been more with Josh McDaniels from what I can gather, but I talked to someone who has an intimate knowledge about the setup at the Patriots, a source that I trust and knows a lot about what happens. The OC before Josh McDaniels, knows that crew and feels pretty confident that he was not on the headsets with Belichick. So I think that's a great question. And you could be on the headsets, but who are you on the headsets with, right? Hey, good morning. Good morning, my friend. Is he giving coaching suggestions or just in there? You know, that's the thing. One of the things he talked about in the interview I heard later, because he didn't really talk a lot about that in the clip that I played. You know, I barely got a question in. They were trying to, if you could tell, he was trying to be dumb, but I was like, nope, let me get this in. He talked about being able to see the whole picture. So I guess he's giving suggestions. Let me stop that. He's clearly giving suggestions. It's just a matter of to who. And one of my questions has been, Charlotte, was throughout the year, is he having input on those in-game decisions about down and distance, about management, what plays to call, how much input is he having? And we still don't know that. And I think that's what's a bit curious and makes me just kind of go, how many coaches are going to deal with that? And for those of you, let me say this. Something was floated last week by the national media, and no disrespect to those national guys. They have made their living. They have some great relationships. They know a lot of stuff. But a lot of them, there's just no way you can cover every team like a local person does, right? Because the team I cover day in, day out is the Houston Texans. I cover the league, but the team that I have the most intimate knowledge about is the Houston Texans, okay? It's tough to have that about 32 teams. You gotta be getting it from someplace. And so they have the relationships with the organizations. And so the story that was out last week about David Culley not being willing to fire Tim Kelly, that was like the difference. So I'm gonna tell you why that's just a crazy statement. David Culley didn't hire Tim Kelly. David Culley didn't hire his entire staff. That was done for him. And I don't know how many of you have jobs or work for somebody else, but do people that are not, how do you fire somebody you didn't hire? If you didn't have the authority to hire somebody, do you get to fire them? I'm going to say that most times no. I don't think, and I said this to Ian Rappaport directly, he didn't have the juice to fire Tim Kelly. He just didn't have it. So, there's so much we don't know. Hey, good morning, Carolyn. Good morning. And Charlotte says, what if they give Deshaun the option to choose a coach? I think he would come back. Yeah, I don't think he would at this point. I think it's bigger than the coach. I think that this time last year, Deshaun wanted some input with the GM and the coach, or at least to be kept in the loop about it. But so much has happened. I just don't think that it would matter who they hire. I just think Deshaun is done with the team and the organization. And while today, one of the things Nick said, he thought Jack Easterby gets a bad rap. I think that Jack Easterby is also someone that there are some players who don't want to be in the building with, whether they are, justified or not. So I don't think it's the case. I think Deshaun is done with Houston, and I think he wants to be at a place that's got a little bit more of a rock star environment. Now, I think if things had been different, he would have stayed at Houston. He said he loved it here. I mean, he seemed like he did, but I think he has made his decision. There's talk now, like, what if Flores goes to New York, right? Because with the Giants, and would they then make a move to try to get a Deshaun Watson? I would not be surprised about that. And, in terms of where Deshaun ends up, I just think he's gone. He's done. I think he's done with the organization. I don't think that again, I haven't talked to him. I'm always open to it, but my impression is that he doesn't have a lot of trust in the organization anymore, especially with Cal McNair, and that he's one that's probably not super fond of Jack Easterby. So I think that that's done. Dennis says, I don't see him telling Brady what play to call with Bill as a head coach. Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't doing that. I don't think he would talk to Brady in the booth directly, but I think those are the things that are so, can I say, that are really curious about it. I mean, he's talking about not so much, when I heard him do the other interview, he talked more about, checking out the other defense and what are they lining up as, or stuff that maybe the coaches didn't know or didn't see, being other eyes and an additional asset. That's what he was talking about, but he didn't explain that the other day. He talked about, hey, listen, that's what I do, it's what I've been doing, and that they would have a discussion. And listen, guys, one of the things he also said is that people have asked him about that. So it's not just us, it's not just me who has been beating this drum all year, because I just didn't understand it. There are clearly people in the coach's booth on headsets during the game, right? They got a whole booth of people. I just haven't seen a general manager in that role. Now, has it ever happened? I had somebody ask me on Twitter. I can't say it's never happened that a general manager has been in the booth wearing the coach's gear, coach's little coach outfits, and with the headsets on. I've covered the league for about 30 years. Remember, I started when I was 12. But I don't recall seeing it. So it's different, and it's a really fair question to ask. Good morning, LaWanda Phillips. Welcome. Happy 22 for those of you I haven't had a chance to talk to before now. Hey, Don Payne. He says, what do you think about Lovie Smith? Looks like he did a decent job with the defense. He did. I thought he did do a decent job with the defense. In terms of what I think of him, I don't think he's got a shot at being the head coach. I haven't really heard his name pop up, and it'll be curious to see what happens. I'll be interested to see what happens with whoever they bring in. For instance, if they hire Brian Flores, well, Brian Flores runs a different defense, right? Lovie Smith is a 4-3 guy. Brian's a 3-4, and it may not sound like a big deal, but in terms of personnel, when they've already turned over a lot, and they're going to turn over some more because they have 20-something players under contract or so, maybe 30. They're going to have players come in the draft. Are they going to redo the defense next year? Maybe, but it depends on who the head coach is. If the head coach is Mayo, the young linebacker coach out of New England, I don't really see Lovie Smith, working for a 35-year-old head coach. I mean, I could be wrong. He may say, "Yeah, I still want to coach. I'll be his coordinator." I don't know. I think it really depends on who the next coach will be. Do I think the next coach will have Patriots ties? I do think that they have they have a leg up, if you will. I think they have some preferences as it relates to that. But they also interviewed Hines Ward. And if you're like me, you're going, what in the world? Hines Ward was an amazing player. He's coaching at Florida Atlantic as an assistant, maybe an offensive assistant or something. Hines Ward is not ready to be the head coach in the National Football League. But think about this. Heinz coach has what? He's got a lot of knowledge about the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. And it's clear that Nick Caserio thinks a lot of the Steelers organization in terms of places that have been done the right way. Organizations that have been run the right way. So maybe that's more of a information getting session, right? Because now you've got a chance to sit and believe with somebody to kind of pick their brains, if you will. And I'm going to just hope it's not them playing with the Rooney Rule, right? I'm going to hope, I'm going to give them credit and say that that's not what it's about. That, we can check off the list in terms of people that we interview because of the Rooney Rule. I'm just going to say that's not it. But I would not be surprised to see that it was them kind of picking the brain of Heinz Ward about that organization, about the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, which is clearly one that has a lot of success, and one that even Nick Caserio highlighted in his press conference last week. I don't think they care about being a hometown hero. Byron Leftwich is a good coach, and I think hopefully he'll have some good options. And, I cover the Houston Texans. I'm a Houstonian. I've left with a team I cover to do well. He may have other options, And last year, Eric Bieniemy was a name that we heard. And here's a few things. I don't know Eric Bieniemy other than, just what I see from them being in Kansas City. But I've heard, when we've heard this before, he doesn't interview well. I've heard that. But let me put a pin in that. Because I remember before Tony Dungy got his first job, that was things people said about Tony Dungy. Now, I'm not comparing the two, because they are two very different people. I know enough to know that. I don't think Eric Bieniemy is their kind of guy. They did talk to him last year, but I don't think that that's their kind of guy. But yeah, Leftwich should be considered, Craig says, I believe this current Texas administration is not interested basically in sucking up to Houston media. So people around Houston have lost contacts in that building since the O'Brien regime has been removed. I don't think fans typically care how the media feels about the GM or how the team management treats media. Look around you. Americans have lost complete trust in media. It's fair to say the average American doesn't even like media. So media pet peeves don't resonate with the public. Well, that's a good point. It may not, but I still think that they are, as being a part of the media, conversations to have. And, I think it's important to show up when you have the access and when you're in the room and to ask the questions. And so I'm going to continue to do that because that's what I do when it's a part of who I am. And you're right, there's the trust about the media. There's not a lot of it. The Texans probably really don't care. But I think that the people that tune in to watch to get their information from Chalk Talk are interested. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. So I'm going to do my best at always providing you information, right? And what I will say about media, for whatever criticism, rightfully so, is levied upon media, it's still a part of the equation, right? It just is. And everything's not going to be done on a team's own personal platform. And whatever shortcomings the media has, it is still a place that has a viable role in terms of the conversations about teams and news and a plethora of other stuff. So that's a whole different show that we could go to. But I do think that what the Texans are interested in is the fact that ain't nobody going to those ball games, right? So they can tell people on their own platform and their own shows what a great job they're doing. But I was at every single home game. And I'm not telling you what like a camera shot gave me. I'm telling you what I saw. They have lost a huge part of their audience. And so they're going to have to use a lot of things to get the audience back, right? They're going to have to win. But they're also going to have to do some things via the media because that's how a lot of your message gets out. So, we can discount it, but it's still viable. And so that's what I think about that. Hey, Kim Edwards, welcome. Hey, Dennis and Yolanda. Welcome, Yolanda Evans. I appreciate you guys being a part of the conversation today. So, what happens next? They're probably going to interview Mayo. And Here's a name I want to throw out because I've had some conversations with people about this name recently. DeMeco Ryans, right? DeMeco Ryans, who played here, is currently the defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to talk about those 49ers in a bit for you Dallas Cowboy fans. You know, I'm not here to heckle you or troll you, but we will have a conversation about that game in just a moment. But DeMeco Ryans is getting some looks. There's some teams that are talking to him that have expressed an interest in interviewing him for head coach. And man, would it be great that if DeMeco Ryans got a shot? So what I said the other day on Twitter is that, but he doesn't have any Patriots ties. And a fair question from somebody was, well, does he have to? He's got Houston ties. He shouldn't have to, but it absolutely seems as though those guys get a leg up, right? But DeMeco Ryans would be a great coach. He's got great history. Listen, and there's some things that I think fit into his history in terms of who he is and who this current administration wants to have in the fold. Like, he's got the heart of a servant leader. That's DeMeco Ryans has always been that guy. He's clearly a good football guy. He's talented. He knows what he's doing. And it'd be great to see him get a shot, right? And for those of you who say, well, you know, he sued the Texans, it was really about the field, not so much the Texans. It was about getting hurt on that raggedy, you remember that raggedy turf they had before, that field that was people were getting hurt? So it really was the field. And so that was back then. I don't think that should really, you know, be an issue. Dennis says, I was at the games. I spent more time tailgating than watching. Yeah. And good morning, Charles. He says media is critical. There's a very good reason for the First Amendment. Absolutely. It is definitely critical and definitely necessary. And Dennis says all the home games, it's pretty empty inside. It was empty inside. I don't think it was. So the stadium holds about 72,000 people. I don't think it was half full. And the games, I will tell you, it always seemed as though the visiting team had more fans in the building than the Houston Texans. No organization wants that. So that your other team, you see more of their colors, you hear more of them cheering. You lose kind of home field advantage when the other team, when the visitors have more people in the building. You just do, okay? So there's a lot that has to improve with this team. Listen, they're discounting tickets next year for season ticket holders. That's not because they're concerned about the economy. That's because the stands are not full and people are not going to the games, and they've got to re-engage fans, and they're going to have to do a number of things to do that, including how they show up in the media. That's just the reality of it. They are about putting people in the seats, making money, and winning. Making money, putting people in the seats, and winning. Probably almost in that order, right? And so winning cures some things, but they've really disengaged fans with just some of the activities over the past couple of years, from the Bill O'Brien era and the moves that they allowed him to make, transitioning on to where we are now today. So it's a process, and they've got their work cut out for them. All right, so no, we don't need Tillman. We don't need Tillman. Somebody said we need Tillman. Tillman's got to figure out what he's doing with the Rockets. So Tillman, you don't need Tillman. Mattress Mac? Right. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So Dennis says we need Tillman and Mattress Mac to buy the team. He says it jokingly, LOL. You know, Mattress Mac is obviously a huge advocate for Houston, and probably few people that would really have much negative to say about him. I don't know that that's the case so much with Tillman Fertitta. Charlotte says they need a seasoned coach with the brand. They do, but I'm not real sure how many seasoned coaches with a brand would come here. Unless, of course, they would loosen the reins a little bit in terms of the level of control, right? They would. I think that's the question, right? So listen. Let me before I get to Craig's point, I mentioned this and I want to say it before we run out of time. So there haven't been many updates about what's happening with Deshaun Watson. That was something that came out this week, and I'm framing it in a way because we've only heard one side of it. We've heard the Tony Busby side, that he has some dates that he has sent over to Deshaun and his legal team and Rusty Hardin about scheduling depositions, and that because there has not been any response, or at least there had not been by the time I started the show today, from Deshaun's side, from Rusty Hardin and his crew, that those dates would be how they move forward, because there has been no objection to that or whatever. That's all we've got, right? And so the first of that is later next month in February, which we heard all along that the depositions would start in February. So not a real update, but that there is some conversation about when those depositions would take place. And when you hear there are going to be 40 hours of depositions, remember, that's because there are 22 different cases that one lawyer has. And so, I was talking to our legal expert, Charles Drayton, and he said, yeah, when you have that many cases, each case is separate. And so there's a deposition for each case. And so that's why when you hear the number of hours that it might take. So that's the only update we have. We still don't know anything about the suits. The Houston Police Department has not put forth any criminal charges. All we hear is that everyone's investigating. The NFL is waiting, they're investigating. The Houston Police Department's investigating. Nothing's really happened. And so we still are kind of in this hurry up and wait mode. So that's what I have about that. Craig says, so explain that teams in the NFL have to follow the guidelines of that book with only names of minority candidate teams, with the only names of minority candidates teams are allowed to hire from. I would love to see D'Amico here. What I don't want to see is Lovey leave his role as DC or Pep leave his role unless it's up to OC. So, yeah, I'd love to see D'Amico here. And Pep Hamilton, who is the quarterback coach, the passing game coordinator, who's been credited a lot with the development of Davis Mills, who was credited previously with the development, the San Diego quarterback, Herbert. And the Panthers have asked for permission to talk to him for their role, their opening as offensive coordinator. They've got an OC position here. So I would love to see Pep have an opportunity to be an offensive coordinator, if not here, someplace else. I think he's earned it. So you're right about that. I just don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on who comes in. And if it's a young guy, that comes in, perhaps they will have the same kind of hands-on approach they had with Culley, right? Hiring the staff, being hands-on game day, being much more involved in every aspect of it. The more experienced a coach you have, the less of that is really going to be possible. So, it's going to be viable, right? Because like last year, Leslie Frazier wasn't going to come in and have them pick his whole staff. My understanding was he wasn't interested in that. Yeah, y'all's situation is kind of a hot mess, but I got to hire my own staff. Now, that was my understanding from last year. And so we'll see about Charlotte, a seasoned coach with a brand. I don't know that that's what this team wants, if they still want that level of control, if they're willing to give any of that up. We'll see. And that's going to be, we'll see how that works out long term for Nick Caserio. I do have to mention the Cowboys, because I did say I'd mention it. What in the world? The only team that lost, the only home team that lost this weekend were the Cowboys. And here's what I want to know. The Cowboys fans, were y'all really throwing stuff on the field? Like, y'all were acting out for real. It was crazy after that game. Man, listen. You could criticize you can criticize Jerry Jones for a lot of stuff. He put together a team. They put together a team from a personnel side that didn't get it done. And, listen, is it Mike McCarthy? Did Dak not live up to the moment? What happened to your running game? There's so many questions. And what was that play you called with no timeout? Listen, we could do a whole show about the Cowboys. If any of you have thoughts about the Cowboys and you want to share them, I'm happy to discuss them here with you. But wow is what I can say. That was really a mess. And the game last night, the Monday night game, last night with Arizona and and the Rams. I don't know if anybody was surprised about that game, right? But what was it, 21-0 at the half? The final was 34-11. The Rams just were, they were in total control that entire game. The final on Sunday night, the Chiefs it was a blowout. It was 42-21. The Chiefs they were doing Chief stuff. The Buccaneers, of course, beat the Eagles 31-15 this weekend. The Cowboys lost at home 23-17. And then the Bills and the Patriots. The Bills just put a beat down on the Patriots. I loved it. And it's because I know somebody in the organization, not because I'm so anti-Patriots, but I was glad. That final was 47-17, and the Bengals got their first playoff win in 31 years, beating the Raiders 26-19. So next weekend will be interesting, okay? The upcoming, where's the schedule? Let me give you the schedule that's coming up this weekend. It'll be interesting, right? So this is the schedule for this coming weekend. The Bengals play at the Titans. The Titans have the top seed in the AFC. That game is on Saturday in Tennessee. For the 49ers play at the Packers. That game is on Saturday night at 7:15. And then on Sunday, there are 4 games on Sunday. No, there are 2 games on Sunday. The Rams play at the Buccaneers, and the Bills play at the Chiefs. I am pulling for the Bills in that game. And then the Rams and Buccaneers, I don't really care. So much for those of you who thought there could be a Buccaneer and Patriots Super Bowl. I'd love to see the Bills come out of the AFC and get there. And in terms of in the NFC, doesn't really matter to me. I know that Whitney Merciless is a part of the Buccaneers, so the Packers, the Buccaneers is a part of the Packers organization. I'm okay if they come out of the NFC. It doesn't really matter. But I wouldn't mind seeing if it helps D'Amico, the 49ers or the Rams. So, Dennis said he didn't expect Arizona to win, but I didn't expect them to look like that, right? I did not expect them to look like that. Dennis says they special. The Cowboy fans are different. They are. They're different. I was a little disappointed in how they acted out after the game. Before we get out of here, I told you we'd talk a little bit about the Houston Rockets, an organization that is admittedly in rebuild mode. I tell you, if you haven't had a chance to watch them, check them out. They're kind of fun to watch because I like what I see in some of these young guys, not just Jalen Green, who's getting better, right? And Alpi, Shinguan Alperin, another 19-year-old, and Josh Christopher. I really like what you see with Josh Christopher, but you got, still Jayshawn Tate and KJ Martin. And the kind of news, if you will, out of the Rockets about the Rockets recently has been that maybe the Rockets are entertaining a trade of Eric Gordon for number 1. We'll see. I'm going over to practice when I get done with the day's show. They've been on the road. They go back on the road to play Utah tomorrow, and then Friday night they're playing in Golden State. And next week they're back in town on Tuesday night to face, a week from today, to take on the San Antonio Spurs. They won that game in San Antonio last week when they played the Spurs. But let me let you hear from head coach. Try to share my screen if it'll let me. The internet's being a little slow. Stephen Silas, after the game on Sunday when they beat Sacramento, right? They played Sacramento in 2 games. They lost the first game was it Friday night, and then they played them again on Sunday night. They won that game, and it was quite a finish. But it looks as though my internet may not want me to share that with you, and so we may not get to it. But I will say this. Charlotte said Kansas City and Tampa again. I hope not, right? I hope it's not KC and Tampa again. I'm not real sure that that Tampa is going to be back. I'm just not real sure. And in Kansas City, you know, I like Patrick Mahomes, but I'm ready for there to be somebody else from the AFC. So you might be right, Charlotte, but we will see. All right, I can't pull up the sound. My internet is not cooperating with me. It has a mind of its own. So it's not letting me show you that. And I can't even pull up. So you can see it, but I can't put on the screen. Craig says there's a stat that everyone keeps leaving out about the Cowboys. Everyone's saying the Cowboys were the only home team that lost this weekend, which is true. But they were also the only home team that had to deal with the 49ers. No one should have been surprised at what happened with the Cardinals. Kingsbury's style of offense will never win in the NFL. Those are really good points. You know, that we get back to what really wins in the National Football League in terms of how you get it done. You know, you got to be able to run the ball, right? You got to be able to run the ball. The 49ers were the real deal. And so I think Cowboy fans were hoping that this year would be the year the Cowboys would take the next step. They did not. So what's going to happen? We'll all stay tuned. Hey, listen, thank you guys for being a part of Chalk Talk today. Thank you for engaging. Remember to hit the share button so wherever you're watching this today's show, you can share it with your tribe, with your online community. I appreciate you guys, most importantly, engaging with me. And I don't know why it's not even, I don't even know if it's going to let me end this broadcast. Let's try something here. So listen, I appreciate you guys. And my internet's still on. It says we're still live. I can't seem to get over to the place where we end the show. All right, so listen, I'm going to end the show the best way that I can. I can't play my little outro video, but I'm trying to see what happened in terms of, man, who knows? That's the thing about technology. Thing. Let's see. All right, everybody. I'll see you next time. Have a great, great week. What? Okay. Thank you guys. I don't know what's happening on my end, but I appreciate that, Craig. Yep, post in group pages, people. Appreciate it. Let me... Wow, this is interesting. All right, I may have to do a hard reboot to end the broadcast, and then I'll edit this end off and post it on my YouTube page, if it allows me to do that. Here we go.